listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hello and welcome, or maybe it's welcome back. We are so happy to have you here. It is a gorgeous day here in New Jersey, in Avalon, and I'm so happy we have a great show for you. You are watching Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, Life's Amazing Journey. I am your host, executive producer, director, and broadcast engineer. And with me, as always, is a man who has an amazing journey that continues. He is joining us from the UK today, a man on the move. It's John Christian. Welcome back, John.
Hi, Doctor. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. You're looking well and healthy and very happy.
Yes, I'm good. I take care of myself. So daily workout routines, good diet, and all that kind of stuff. And the sunshine of Portugal, where I just left recently.
Well, it suits you well. And as an entertainer and as a performer, a singer, an author, a coach, a mentor, we could go on and on. You have been changing people's lives every day, and it's just so beautiful. So thank you for being on this amazing journey with me as well.
Thanks for making it possible. You're incredible what you do. All those shows. 18 shows is it now?
18 shows. Yeah, some weeks it's 16, some weeks it's 20. So I'm excited, but we're going through a rebranding process, which is amazing. So you're going to see everything change. Everything's slowly changing, and we have our YouTube channel now, USA Global TV. Yeah. So it's all exciting. So again, I'm glad that you're a part of it.
Thank you very much. I'm very much delighted to be part of it, and appreciate your invitation to do so.
So, John, now that places are open and people are going back and performing, how are your thoughts about performing in a medium such as this as opposed to in person?
Well, Joe, I love the performing arts, full stop anyway. So any opportunity to be a part of contributing to it really pleases me. This is great. A great media for those of us that can't perform on stage right now or live on television, although that's changing here. Unfortunately, I've got my first live job coming up on the 17th of July since I got back. So, and other inquiries too. So I'm really looking forward to being back in front of an audience because, for those that don't perform, there's no words for the joy of working with people face to face.
Well, look at you just getting back into town, and you already have a gig signed up. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Any promoting you want to do on that?
Well, it's a film job actually. So it's kind of it's in the closet at the moment, and very often we're not allowed to say too much about it before release dates. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm happy for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
So would you do us the honor of singing for us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are?
Yeah, it's afternoon here in the UK. And thank you. I'd love to do that. And
all right.
And for our listeners and our viewers, I'm not in a recording studio, as you can see. So if the vocal sounds a bit muted, I'm singing through my laptop and I'm using my little speaker to play the backing track. But the song that I've chosen to do today, I think is very fitting for our guest speaker today, because we're all about change. And this song is about change. It was written by two American songwriters, and that's Tony Arata and Wayne Tester. And it was made famous by Garth Brooks. And it's a song that actually tells the story of somebody who wants to make change in the world. They're doing everything they can, but they keep encountering people that keep saying, whatever you do, you're never going to change things. I think we've all heard that at some point in our lives. So this is a song. It's called The Change. one hand reaches out to pull us soul from harm, while so many more go unspoken for. They say, what good has it done by saving just this one? It's like whispering a prayer in the fury of a storm, and I hear them say, you'll never change things, and no matter what you do, it's still the same thing. But it's not the world that I am changing. What I do is so this world will know it cannot change me. This heart still believes that love and mercy still exists, while all the hatred rage, and so many say love is all but pointless in madness such as this. It's like trying to stop a fire with the moisture of a kiss, and I hear them saying, you'll never change things, and no matter what you do, it's still the same thing. But it's not the world that I am changing. What I do is so this world will know it cannot change me. As long as one heart still holds on, then hope is never really gone. And I hear them say, you'll never change things, and no matter what you do, it's still the same thing. But it's not the world that I am changing. What I do is so this world will know it cannot change me. What I do is so this world will know it cannot change me.
Brilliant. That was beautiful. And what a great message, too. What made you select that song specifically?
Because I was thinking about Paul and our guest speaker today, Mr. Paul Levy, and and having met him, and the fact that we're traveling similar paths, although he works in a lot of different areas than I do, and so Paul's really into change, and his websites are all about change. Everything he's doing is about change. So I thought it was very fitting.
Perfect. It is interesting how some people really embrace change, welcome it, thrive on it. Other people are so afraid.
Yeah, and I work with this a lot. I actually do a program. I call it the Path of Daring, and what I've learned through my own personal experience is that fear. Very often we get wonderful opportunities presented to us in our life, And then the mind comes up with all these fantasies of fear, and we stop. And I've encountered so many people in my training programs that have stories where they've done that. A good opportunity came and the fear came, the imagining of, what if I fail? What if I can't do it? What will people think? All that stuff that we do, the head does anyway. And they don't go that step further. So in the whole training program is focused on recognizing where does it come from? Who's doing it to who? How does it work? And what can we do about it? And so we go through those barriers so the person's more prepared next time a good opportunity comes to go through the barrier and jump into the unknown. And that's my life, jumping into the unknown.
I was going to say, you seem like a man who has very little fear.
Well, I have like jumping out of an aeroplane is not something that my stomach would like very much, but show business, a life in show business, and a life now as a coach and a presenter and speaker, it gives me constant opportunities to step out there in new situations and apply what I've learned, and that is how to manage that process that comes up in the mind, the imagining mind, that can crucify a great moment and a great opportunity. So by performing on stage, I've noticed the difference between when I didn't do well in my performance, and I noticed because I was in the energy of fear and self-doubt. But the times when I did really well was when I'd done what I need to do to get past that. And people feel that, obviously.
Yes, you can definitely see when someone is coming from a place of fear as opposed to one of confidence.
Yeah. So I think that's everybody's journey, really. It's the key to our lives, isn't it? How do we understand how only the ego or personality mind ever can destroy those moments? So if we train it properly, give it the right tools and the techniques and right awareness, then we're capable of just so much more than we normally allow ourselves.
We just have to be open and put the work in, right?
We do, yeah, that's it. The shortfall that I find, and I know that Paul, I think, will back this up definitely in his work, the shortfall is that I think that what we do should be foundation training in every education system for character development. And then we wouldn't get to my age or my friend's age and we'll still find ourselves working through stuff that we've learned to do to ourselves that's inappropriate thinking and behavior. And it just becomes habit. So breaking the habit is the challenge, but you have the tools and the techniques in place in order to do that. And that's what's missing, I think, in our general mainstream education at present.
Well, I think it's really important that you're bringing awareness to that, and our guest will be doing the same. So what do you say we take a quick break and then bring him on?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, we are going to watch a music video by the debutantes, Victoria and Lavinia, and it's called If Paradise Is. So I'm going to put us backstage so that this can take up the whole screen, and we'll be right back. Stay with us as we bring out our guest, Paul Levy, right after this break.
Take me to who needs paradise.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, life's amazing journey with my co-host, John Christian. John, wasn't that beautiful?
I love that. It's beautiful. It brings back memories too. It's a really nice production and lovely singers, pretty girls.
Very, very nice. That's Victoria and Lavinia. You can follow them on Instagram. They're the debutantes. So, John, let's bring out Paul Levy. Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah. Well, Paul comes from the UK. He lives in Brighton, which is one of our famous seaside resorts for those of you across the pond there, and where we have the famous lanes, well known for the antique shops. And of course, we have the famous Brighton Sticks of Rock with Brighton that runs all the way through it, and toffee apples and candy floss and all the wonderful things, and the Brighton Pier. So anyway, so Paul, I think, gets to go out and play quite a lot down there. I think we did walk the pier once together. So to introduce Paul to you, he's a writer, a researcher, and a technosopher. He's also the author of several books, including Technosophy, Digital Inferno, The Poetry of Change. He's a senior researcher at the University of Brighton, an associate at Warwick Business School, and founder of the theatre publication FringeReview. So Paul also leads workshops and training programs all around the world. And that's where we met, actually, out in the world. We met in Slovenia when Paul was present in one of my training programs. So from there, we became friends, and I'm delighted to be able to introduce Paul to you today because he has so much great wisdom and information to share with us. Paul Levy.
Hi, Paul. Welcome.
Hello. Welcome from sunny Brighton.
It sounds quite delightful there.
It is. It's the place that Queen Victoria hated. But what happened was her predecessor, the Prince Regent, used to go for the health cures at the city of Bath until a rather dubious scientific claim by a doctor claimed that drinking what actually was very filthy, poisonous seawater at the time would make you healthy. So he moved his entire royal entourage and built a palace in Brighton.
Wow, that's fascinating. I didn't know that.
And it's a beautiful palace too, isn't it, Paul?
It is. It's completely Chinese design on the inside and Indian on the outside, like the Taj Mahal. And the Prince Regent was a kind of crazy, eclectic prince who loved to party. So you actually have to go in there to quite believe what I'm describing.
Have you been there, John?
Do you know, I've been round it so many times, but I've never been inside, and I must do that, Paul. I'll come down and we'll do it. Now I'm back in the UK. You can enlighten me on it.
Happy to.
Paul, John and I were talking backstage about how you two met, and he just referenced that. So what were your thoughts when you first met him and he was running this workshop?
Well, he was coming across really as a kind of benevolent guru, which is the best kind. And he's the only guy I've ever met that will take you deeply into uncomfortable, philosophical, personal territory and then sing you a song from his next album.
Education and entertainment all in one, it sounds like.
Well, it's better than PowerPoint.
That is for sure. Paul, I'm wondering if you could share with our audience what a technosopher is. I didn't even say that right. How do you say that?
Technosopher.
Technosopher, yes. Can you share with our audience what that is?
I guess as you perhaps have looked at your whatever mobile phone you've got, and I notice in Brighton a lot of people have got their iPhones, I guess, at a great battle between Apple and Android. But if you look into how those products were made, in a lot of cases, the people in the design room are not just engineers and economists trying to keep the cost down and so on, but you've actually got environmental scientists, you've got artists doing the design and trying to make them look beautiful. You've got all kinds of different educationalists. You've got philosophers, psychologists, and so on. And really, that's what Sophia, that word, means, rather than logic in technology. Logic suggests science, but a kind of narrow set of disciplines. And I think technosophy, which is kind of coming from wisdom, is the idea that to make beautiful things, but to make useful things, requires wider perspectives. And I like that Sophia, that wise view. So I've been looking at that as part of my research for a long time, is how do we make things for the world that are also not just beneficial to us, but beneficial to the kingdom of nature and to the world at wide and its future and so on. And actually you do find that when some of those wisdom-based approaches lack people who think morally and ethically, you can get amazing products that are destroying the planet. And the balance has to be right. But in a lot of cases, you may find the things that we love most are coming from that root Sophia, the wisdom, which can sound a bit new agey, but it's not. It's just the notion of many different perspectives on the same problem, rather than just a few.
I love that. That's a great perspective and position to come from when you think about all of the damage that has taken place in this earth, right, in this world, and all the products that are made and how they're made and the destruction that it causes to nature and to our planet. So thank you for doing what you're doing. I think that's amazing.
Well, it's part of the education is to try and educate the children, the leaders of the future, that narrow perspectives on anything lack wisdom, and wisdom is at the heart of how we're going to lead ourselves to a future that's sustainable.
Yeah. Paul, I see that you cover raising your thinking, and what you've just described there, it requires that to be that artistic. So enlighten us more on that, on your thinking around that. What does it mean, raising your thinking?
Perhaps a little game by going back in time to around the end of the 1700s, and you find a German author, Goethe, and you find he writes things like Faust, but he's also a natural scientist, a philosopher as well. And I come across actually a story a few years back, a very strange fairy tale called The Green Snake and the Beautiful Lily. And you can read it a lot and wonder what it's about, but it has some sort of wonderful, levels of meaning and stuff. And in The Green Snake and the Beautiful Lily, at one point, our hero adventurer, in order to continue with the quest, meets three kings. And he has to answer the riddle of each one. So can I invite you two just to join in with this? There's no great right, wrong prize around this, but for me it became very profound. So the hero adventurer meets the first king and is asked, it's very sexist this, there are three kings, so apologies for that. But so the first king asks, what's the most valuable metal?
Gold.
Over to you.
Gold?
Gold?
Yeah, gold.
Perfect, correct. You're doing very well. So what's more beautiful than gold? Asked the second king. By the way, the stakes are very high. If you get this wrong in the quest, you're out of it. Bad things are going to happen. There's a hole, opens underneath you. So what's more valuable than gold?
Dr. Jacalyn.
Is it multiple choice?
No.
Your health. Your health.
Good answer. Not the one in the book or in the story. John, over to you.
I lost you, the connection for a second.
What's more beautiful than gold?
Dr. Jacalyn.
Very nice answer as well. In the story, and it's surprising, but this guy gets it. It's light.
I was going to say that on a serious note.
What's the most valuable metal? Gold. What's more beautiful than gold? Light. And then he really hits them with one. What's quicker than light?
Sound. I'm off the show. Sorry, guys. I have to go kidding.
Hold on.
Shall I pull you out of your misery, John, or are you going to give me an answer?
Did you hear me?
No?
No.
Oh, I said consciousness.
Now, there's an interesting one too. The answer that he gives is what's quicker than light? Conversation. And to find that in a book, that old, 1799, there's been a kind of quest for what that means, because it intuitively connected with me very much. And if we come to the modern age now, and you'll find there are lots of writers saying, what's conversation really about? Healing power of conversation. And, the benefit of conversation, John, being consciousness. And the words like beauty, in all of those, we can go down very... Connection. Sorry, John. Are you guys hearing me? Are you hearing me?
Yes, I hear you. You're fine. Yes.
Okay. So all of those things relate, but for me, then that really makes me ask, then what's conversation? And you find the modern work of people like David Bohm and the psychologist Edgar Schein, and they talk all about what conversation really is, because it's not me saying a load of stuff and you then waiting and then saying what you think, and then I say what I think. And I started to read that stuff, and I'd had it in my own practice for a long time that out of conversation comes all kinds of things, but one of them is, I think, freedom. But it has to be conversation that really is skilled. And it can't just be, I say this, you say that. You nod halfway through what I'm saying, having already formed what you're going to say next. And I look into that craft. And it's, if I ask John a question or Jacalyn a question, it's you stop and you pause and you think, well, what did he mean by that? And you might then answer with more questions for clarification. And this is a kind of dance where you really don't step on each other's feet, and it gets better with practice. But I feel at the moment, certainly in the self-help world, and certainly in the field of management, we are prioritizing, hurrying, quick answers, what I think, what you think, getting to action. And the classic thing when people are silent is they're asked, are you okay? And so we've sort of, almost medicalized these things when they're not. Mm-hmm. And even when we think we're reaching deep into intuition or reading people and all of that, they don't read so easy. And actually lots and lots of our own habits and preconceptions and our hurrying means we often misread people. And then we misread the kind of misreading we're doing. And we don't know that when we think we're being spontaneous, we're just picking up the quote that we picked up from the TV that we like. Now, how can that be real conversation? And the most recent person that's, I guess, influenced me, because again, I'd been writing about this, was Edgar Schein. And Edgar Schein wrote a book called Humble Inquiry, where he makes a very convincing case that we get far more freedom, consciousness, and knowledge by saying almost nothing and just listening and waiting and not saying I'm clever or I'm a spiritual this or that, but just being in a constant state of inquiry. And of course, we've been groomed to see inquiry and pausing as some form of inefficiency. And that's where my work's been right at the heart of for a long time.
Paul, I'm wondering with true conversation, how much of the importance in listening is a priority. So you have to be a really good listener, it sounds like, to have an effective, meaningful conversation. Is that correct?
I think the problem we've got, just to connect it to something else, which was in a workshop actually on change that I was co-facilitating, I suggested to people, because someone asked, what's been one of your biggest revelations? And it's the revelation that change doesn't exist. And then when they kind of said, what do you mean? Because this was a program on change management. I said, I don't think it exists. And let's see if we can prove it now. I said, can you point to the door? And we pointed to the door, and there was the door, and everyone confirmed the door was there. It's a noun. But then when I say, could you point to movement or moving? They pointed out the window and clouds were going across the sky. Now I said, can you point to change? Because the word is a noun. So just like the door, the clouds, we can point to them. And someone pointed to their hair and said, well, this is grayer than it was, as John and I can attest to right now. I said, but isn't that hair changing? Where's the change as a noun? And they had to admit that that's the result of something that's still going on. It's like our lovely cat this morning was trying to trap a moth, which I didn't particularly like. But the moth had no chance of it dying anyway. My wonderfully inept cat, as soon as he thinks he's got it, it's moved on. It's over there now. He can't capture that flying. He can capture the moth when it's still and leap on it and do all kinds of horrible things. But changing exists. because you keep seeing evidence of it and you notice it inside you. But as soon as, and we teach so many managers to do this, manage change, set your purpose. The problem of it is as soon as you think you've changed it, the world has already changed anyway. And things go out to date very quickly, as much in climate change as in the changing ideas in our head. So Edgar Schein points out, probably slowing down helps, probably listening and inquiring. But the other problem, Dr. Jacalyn, is that as soon as I say that's what it is, it's probably already gone. So you have to be very dangerous in giving these things labels. And actually, the thing I love about the friends that I love in my life is we can sit for long periods of time, maybe reading separate books, and it's okay. It feels actually a bit better than constantly talking and filling the silence. So in a noisy world, the problem of workshops and calling things team or effective or any of that is we get trapped then in, I love the word, sentencing ourselves to fixedness. And that's an amazing word, sentencing, because it's a sentence that you can utter. And if you utter the sentence, I am hungry too long, you sentence yourself to being hungry, even though you might not be as hungry as you thought. And that's interesting that the word sentence, which is something we utter, is also used in prison when we sentence you to 5 years of unfreedom called incarceration. So all of those things suggest we should be comfortable, and don't be too comfortable with this. We should be comfortable with enjoying discomfort, not knowing, having very little to say. Better say it as a question for other people to work with than a statement that they should learn. And I was sitting in my favourite garden cafe, Pavilion Gardens, with some friends, and we were saying we thought the biggest thing that is making COVID worse in the world is opinion. It is thinking stuff, putting it in the world at some fixed point, and then that's your view. And the world could be changing, but you're not seeing it or hearing it.
Yeah, I love that. And it's good because silence is at the heart of all philosophies, isn't it? You know, and yet still we pay little attention to the fact that it's been written and we've been exposed to it over centuries and centuries, but still there's little actual serious practice towards attaining it.
Yeah, and the more you love it, it comes as a double-edged sword, because then it becomes something, because you love it so much, that becomes an easy hook. And then when something else comes along that you don't love as much, your bias doesn't let you give it an audience.
One comment that I have is that...
You know, you remember... Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Is when I was going through the certification process training to get my coaching certification, what we learned was to use the power of silence when you're working with clients. And I'll let clients know that I'm going to ask a question and I'm not going to interrupt. And if they take the entire time answering that question, that's fine. And when people are finally silent, you can see how uncomfortable they feel, because I'm not saying anything, they're not saying anything. But I found that's where the growth really takes place. That's where, I'm not going to use the word change, but that's where something happens. Maybe some insight comes to them.
But the danger of that is just to do that very gently and as an exception. And there's one of my videos up on YouTube has asked a question that's very uncomfortable, and it's uncomfortable to me. I was actually asking myself and seeking some thoughts on it, which is actually I wasn't seeking thoughts, I was seeking thinking. And that's similar with change and changing, was what if constantly telling people stuff is like spiritually punching them in the face? Which is a horrible thing to say, but that's been kind of confirmed in even psychology by some psychologists, but also I guess in the spiritual traditions, that if you could perceive someone's electrical field or their aura or whatever that spiritual side is, and it's expressed differently, is if you really push your view on someone, it's like pushing them over and they land on the floor, because there's a sort of brutality to impacting on people, and especially if they then become a kind of in awe of you or are scared of you. And sadly, the more you have an impact on them, but the more that reduces their freedom just to be silent, think about it, question you back, which is unfortunately the way that things like these screens work, because they just flash on and off all the time, so fast we can't see them. Is we've got to be very gentle with our kids, with ourselves, with groups that we work with. But then they'll say, hang on a sec, can't you speed up a bit, because this is the world in hurry. But the danger is that actually the more we tell them, the more we sell them, the more we push them, the more in their more subtle, vulnerable self, they fall over. And the danger in the long run then is that they jump from course to coach to whatever. And it's all just mixed up, and they don't have time to reflect and be silent. So I'm sure you do this, but invite people to be silent. Don't tell them to be.
Oh, no, I'm silent. So in other words, I'm silent. I don't say anything. I just listen.
Yeah, and then that is brilliant because it's an invitation, rather than a pitch for them to be silent. And that's one of the best ways in inquiry, is to be in that state, but to also make sure that when you're in that state of teacher or coach, you're also inviting them to shock you and teach you something about yourself, because inquiry, when it's shared, is so much more powerful than one person is in. It can be loving authority, but certainly the philosopher Rudolf Steiner, and it was a bit of a difficult thing for him because people kept trying to tell him or model him to be like a guru, but actually the idea is to take these things, take them as invitations, offer something back. And if you practice what became known as Goethean conversation, allow for 3 hours where you thought it would only take half an hour, because the silence will take over, and that's where the work gets done.
I love that. Paul, you knew Sir George Trevelyan, didn't you?
Yeah.
Knew
of him. We didn't do lunch together very often.
Okay. Well, I was fortunate to be able to do that. And he was one of our famous poets and authors, and he kept a tradition of sacred teachings alive in England. And I'd watched him give a presentation at St James's Church in London one night of his poetry, and it was profound, what happened in that audience. So I asked him after, so would you mind sharing with me, like, where are you inside yourself? What that allows you to do that? Because I know I've touched it as a performer, but not as a speaker yet. And he went, "Oh, good question, my boy." He said, "Long ago, I said, George, never be afraid of the silence."
Beautiful. It's a gift, isn't it?
It is stunning. Yeah.
And then I think one thing that I'm kind of interested in at the moment in the world of mobile phones is there seem to be some just general principles around for every 5 minutes on a screen, go for a walk for 10 minutes. But the paradox is, because the internet is so powerful and its default is the delivery of content, and it's not lost on me the irony that a lot of social media platforms and purchasing platforms use the word submit, which means surrender. And so we think we're making a choice, but we're happily pressing a surrender button. I just find it interesting that they kind of overlap. Is once you practice silence, one view, which is the kind of transcendental meditation, is it requires very little. There's a mantra and you just kind of notice things happening. But the other ones, which I'm sure as a coach, Dr. Jacalyn, you've also got in your repertoire, which is you find the right level. And so sometimes you might be silent a long time. And so isn't it interesting? There could be a skill set of silence that is even more active and skillful than when we feedback top three, summarizers. But silence at the moment is not as defined, and yet you find it in plays. It's the silences that make the dialogue. You find it in poetry. It's part of the rhythm. And in good parenting, the children learn to, listen to rhythm, be that from instruments or also from poetry. And we're filling the silence, aren't we? Too much. And the paradox is when you get people like me in as a consultant, I'm just more noise.
Yeah.
Wow. Are you saying that you feel like you're more noise? Was that a question or a statement?
Well, I think being what we call an Essex boy in the UK, I'm in a constant dialogue also of wanting to please and do a good job. And so I'm still practicing. Speeding up the silence is not what I want to do, but I don't want to slow it down either, because when you slow it down, it's just more noise. Intervention is always going to be noise. And so I love notions, which I've discovered in the world of improvisation and writers on that. You don't speak to a group, you speak out of a group. You don't have fixed things to say in your head. You can't say them until you've properly conversed. And proper conversation is, you don't know what to say until you've listened. And if that's all going on, is that person doesn't know what to say unless they've listened. And sometimes they listen to the space called the silence, and something comes out of it. We might call it intuition. And just a great quote of Steiner, if you're even whether you're into his kind of spiritual stuff or not, is when a group is truly listening, it's like an angel joins in, and for a moment we become something shared. Sometimes it's called community, sometimes it's called a real team, sometimes it's called synergy, sometimes it's called emergence, that something comes out of the conversation that's just what you need or the company in trouble needs, that could not be found through I speak, you speak, I speak, and we minimize listening. It's an idea that was only possible through a shared conversation. Doesn't make a very good TV, does it?
I was just reflecting.
You two are so in tune with each other. You're always probably about to say the same thing.
I was just going to say that I find when you go into that moment with your audience or your group, and it's the art of doing but not doing all at the same time.
Well, how do you do that, John?
It's in the martial arts and everything else, they call it from China. It's labeled as the Tao, and I think my experience of that, anyways, when one mind is not personally focused on, like you just said, am I doing it right? Am I getting it right? And I've got to do this. When I'm really relaxed completely about, I'm in the present of what's happening intuitively, like you just said, I just hear and feel, that's the important bit, what to say. So my head is not overriding or getting in the way, or my emotions are not getting in the way. So I find myself in that quiet place within energetically, and yet I'm still active.
Interestingly, because one of the practical things, John, can be that if you're coaching or mentoring, and you've already contracted to the idea, there might be quite a lot of silence, so don't feel you've been undersold. So that's kind of has to be part of the practice, is you're trying to get to the root of a problem or a question, someone's in pain, so you ask some questions. And they answer, and then instead of kind of already having any biases or so on, you just go into an inner space of listening and kind of humble inquiry. And then what happens is you might say something, and if this were true and they were listening too, then they say something else, at which point your intuition says, I think we're somewhere. And I'm going to verbalize very humbly a suggested action or solution. At that point, shut that voice up and go round at least once or twice more, very gently. Don't do it as a habit, but quite often you'll find the thing you're about to say, if you also subject that to the beautiful highest form of conversation. There are lots of skills for this, and I'm not about to advertise a course that I run on them. But if you go around a few more times, there comes a moment where you go, oh my God, I was about to give that advice. And that's not what I should have given. And then you suggest all that away. It's like it's all gone. Now you're back in an empty space that may say things to you like, who are you? You're a charlatan. Why are you doing this? You're not good enough. All kinds of little imps that have been hiding now come onto your shoulder. And you think, I don't know if I'm good enough to do this. I don't know if anything I can say will help. And if the person is still there, continue the conversation a little bit more. And at some point, they'll come up with a solution straight out of your head.
Yeah. It's an energetic, intuitive rapport. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and
so
that,
I've always
and
said, I
tuning in.
And so the biggest way of finding a way forward ultimately happens when both coach and coachee are essential to a different person, which is both of them speaking some words, it could come from either, that have gone to the heart of the problem. And you find that a lot these days in a term I've written about called wretched contentment, which was a friend of mine I first heard coining in a pub. But wretched contentment is where somebody can tick every box of contentment. They've got the house, it's not all material, they feel really happy, they feel satisfied, they've got kids that love them, they've got a partner that loves them, they've traveled and seen every country of the world, some of the best ones, the exotic ones, they've read the books, they've written the book, and it's everything they ever wanted to do. But they're still there because something deep down is missing. Could have been they really wanted to be a lion tamer, or it could have been they just wanted to be quieter, or they feel there's still an issue of kind of intolerance in them, that they don't listen properly. And it's only then when you go into the wretched place, the place that is the one you've avoided and all of that, that you could start to really get to the end of your life thinking, what was that? Well, I'm glad it happened. Whereas the first time round, you'd been in that place of panic saying, I ticked every box, but I didn't fulfill whatever it was. And quite often it's because I went looking, a bit like the cat trying to grasp the moth, and it's gone every time. And so Edgar Schein's work, I'd suggest everyone look at, the notion of humble inquiry, and David Bohm suggests a practice that's very inconvenient to us in today's Western society, where you think you can get it on Amazon. And the idea that I'm saying all this now very assertively isn't lost on me. It is a paradox, but ignore everything I'm saying and don't visit my website.
I love your honesty. I love your naked honesty, which is great. That's what makes
is it just a marketing hook, John?
Well, hey, there.
How can we know?
Question. Well, intuitively, I sense that it's not.
One thing I want to share is, as I've gotten older, I really value silence. And it used to be I exercise every day, and I'd have the headphones on with the music blaring. And now I don't have any music. I don't want to hear any sound. I just want to be alone with the silence. And a lot of great ideas, decisions have come from silence.
And I guess the inconvenience is the idea of... and once those voices come, have a go at suggesting all those great ideas away. And it's a bit like being on a merry-go-round, a carousel. Go round a few times till it stops. And if those things are still there, they'll probably, as you say, John, they might be intuitively confirmed. But if you have any doubt, it's quite fun on a merry-go-round. Get a bit dizzy, a bit more, and see what comes. And that's why I love this notion, especially with the internet, is it's not a noun. It doesn't deliver up what you need so easily. You've got to go into the wonderful ambiguity and Alice in Wonderland confusion of not knowing and not rating your first thoughts too highly. Go follow the white rabbit. You'll never catch it. But what you find on the way, all the characters, there's a cat that when it smiles, everything disappears but its teeth.
So, Paul, question for you. How would you describe that moment of total rapport, which you must have had many times?
I think it won't go away. And so you then become technosophic, because techno doesn't just mean technology. What you do is, because it won't go away, you subject it to lots and lots of different angles of inquiry. How would the artist deal with this? What's the philosophical view on this? What happens if I just go and dig in the garden, holding it in my head and think, how does the garden see this? What would a gardener say? And put yourself in different experiences. Put the question to different people, see what answers you get. And so that's the notion of technosophy. And that was often the view of teaching as well, was that we didn't just prepare kids for work, we prepared them for life. But good teachers didn't define what life was, because the world would be changed by that unique individual and there should be no recipe. So I'm saying the same thing, childhood takes a long time and we hurry into adulthood. And so most of us as adults tend to be technological. We tend to follow logic, rational, the easiest, smartest solution. Earning money, society forces us into that. But certainly, I think what you have to do is not just take one view on it, because that one view is a bias. And then if after all of that, the same thing stands as the right thing to do, then that probably is the right thing to do. And if you have doubts and you're allowed to, pause. It's better to stop and avoid disaster than rushing in just because of time and pressure.
And to not overthink it all.
Yeah, and there's another thing, which is where you can, is give the problem away. Give the question away, share it. And I have to say, in all the work that I've done, I have various times where it's actually my clients that I should be paying, because the process of dialogue was essential to us both. I'm not here to deliver. Very rarely, I might write a book and offer the opportunity for people to read it and give me feedback, which is, then the risk is a good one. It's not going to be positive only. But the rest of the time, you're just part of the process. So don't call yourself a change agent, a leader of change, a facilitator of this or that. If you've got confidence in yourself and you look back and go, well, what was I doing there? They seem very happy. It's helpful. That community conflict is solved. Oh, I seem to have been doing that. And that's mystery comes out of you getting out of the way at the right time.
Good.
That sounds
fascinating.
Sounds a bit rubbish to me. And the only reason I say that is I have a memory of saying it before, and I don't know if I've just pulled out something too quickly, too easily, that can get likes. And so I'm going to use the technological process and go away, think about it, look at it, and I might think, oh no, that was the right thing to say, and I don't know. So what you do is you ask the people listening, and then they become part of the creation of whatever it is. And unfortunately, in professional services, as a lot of us are in, that business model isn't easy to administer.
Yeah. Is that what led you to Rational Madness Theatre?
Yeah, I mean, I created a theatre to largely explore questions, not only through conversation, but through the arts. That was a particular phase. And so the notion of rational madness is very difficult, but a book about Taylorism, the Henry Ford model of mass production, where you paid people for doing the smallest job and all of this, was that a guy that wrote his biography described Taylorism, the mass production, as a rational madness. That it made total sense to be able to, for us all to own a car, and they're having cars with batteries and all of that. The system is rational. And yet as he stood there and saw people doing this constantly for not very much money, he said it was crazy at the same time. And what I loved about that is life. You'll never push it in one direction or the other. There's always both of those qualities. And actually pushing it towards rational or pushing it to crazy and throwing it up in the air and only doing them in a separate way creates madness ultimately.
And on that note, we have to conclude our program for today. So thank you for that. Paul, what is the best way for people to reach out to you, and who should reach out to you?
Anyone that wants to can phone John. I'll put his mobile phone number up. That's a joke, by the way. I mean, Cats 3000, the website, everything I've ever written is on there and it's free. And I'm just opening up more. I'm really genuinely not, it's not a shop front to buy things. I love writing books, and occasionally if people invite me to get involved, you can get recommended, which is nice. Then just dialogue with me. I'm more interested in the conversation than the outcome.
Thank you very much.
Great,
thanks for being here today, Paul. We'll have to have you back and continue the conversation.
Love to.
Yeah, and I look forward to coming down for some candy floss, a stick of rock, and a toffee apple.
You just need to show me how I can look that good as you do at your age.
We do have a comment from Diane Floyd-Beam, a very insightful show. I learned so much. There you go. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you, Diane.
Yeah,
okay,
well, come to one of my training programs, Paul.
I would do if you weren't so expensive. That's a joke, by the
way. All right, Paul, thank you again for being here. We'll welcome you back.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Love to. Look forward to seeing you sometime, Paul.
Oh, sorry. I'm getting notified that my next show starts in 4 minutes.
Yes,
so,
indeed. Yeah.
So, John, what's the best way for people to reach you?
Email john@lifebalanceportal.com, website www.lifebalanceportal.com. And if anybody's interested, I have an online training program called Skills for Life Balance. So you can contact me. And my CDs are on my website too.
Fantastic. I was trying to find the banner. Here it is. John@lifebalanceportal.com.
Yes.
Beautiful.
On Life's Amazing Gym.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm glad that you're back safely, and I look forward to hearing what's the next part of your journey.
Indeed. Next Friday. Looking forward to seeing you. Thank you so much for all that you're doing for everybody.
Thank you, John. It's great working with you.
Bye for now.
Bye. We have 6 more shows coming up. The next one is right around the corner. It's called A Better You, Lessons from the Best Coaches, Consultants, and Trusted Advisors. And my expert presenters today are Daphne DeLucci and Stephen Gillen. So please do join us for that. And I'll be announcing the rest of the shows. If you are over on YouTube, please do subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. And here's the banner for that. We'd love to have you be made aware of all the programming that we offer, and we're trying to make sure that we are giving you relevant content, programming that is important to you. And so this next show will be a presentation from two experts who are helping to make us better personally and professionally. So I hope that you'll join us. Stay wherever you are right now. We will be back in a few minutes. Bye, John.